Hello, I'm Toycat and welcome back to the second channel video. Today I wanted to talk about Australia, which is of course the world's largest island, or actually the world's smallest continent. And the interesting thing about being such a big landmass with 25 million people is it means that it's actually one of the world's least densely populated countries. According to this list, it is the 7th least densely populated country with just 3 people per square kilometer or 9 people per square mile. It's insane how undensely populated this country is. In fact, because 3 of these places on this list aren't countries, they're dependents of another country, Australia is the 4th least densely populated country in the world that also happens to be geographically isolated from the rest of the world, which is a great position to be in for, say, a pandemic, right? And although, side note, I always have to mention this because Australia is isolated, kind of like New Zealand, and they both have the whole island culture thing going on that I've mentioned before. Australia technically isn't that far from the rest of the world because Australia owns a ton of islands, and they include islands this close to Papua New Guinea. This Boigu Island right here is actually a part of Queensland in Australia, which means Australia is just, again, land from Australia to land in another country is just 9.99 kilometers away. In reality, you can go to one of these islands, but like, what are you going to do there? Also, you know, there's actually, there's people living on this island, apparently. If you want to go to Australia, just come here. It's a lot easier, and although there's a lot of interesting things about how Australia doesn't really treat that as Australia for certain purposes, there are some very, very, very interesting things with how all of these islands exist. But my point here is that Australia is mostly geographically isolated. For the purposes of, say, a pandemic, it does pretty well. And so one of the things that the world has pretty universally praised Australia and New Zealand on is the fact that because they're so geographically isolated and a level of economically isolated where they don't need people coming in, they early on decided to just close the borders. Like, if you are not Australian, cannot come in. Sorry, it's over. And so as a result, they did not get COVID back in March of 2020. And so although they've actually had a few cases pour through, and although they have had lots of people die, lots of people means like 1,000 people, and 1,000 is a lot of deaths, but I mean, like, I don't know, the total death count in the world right now is 4.6 million, so to only have 1,000 be your share of that, actually pretty good. Go Australia, right? And the world has generally been positive about that. I'd say in the travel spaces that I follow, and in my own mind, it's like, so you had to break like the actual human rights laws to get to this level of no COVID, and it's like, well, everyone seems to agree it's a good trade-off. Like, who wants human rights when you can have no COVID? And no COVID meant basically no lockdowns. We'll ignore Victoria for the purpose of that. No lockdowns in most of Australia for about half the population. Things were swell until recently, because you might have heard about this. In July, Sydney got a COVID case that expanded to a few COVID cases, that expanded to a lockdown, that expanded to a military enforced lockdown. They sent soldiers into Sydney to enforce a lockdown where you cannot leave your home except for essential exercise, shopping, caregiving, and other reasons. And it is one of the harsher lockdowns that exist, and it used to have a 10-kilometer travel limit. Somehow they're like, you know, this wasn't enough, and on the 20th of August, they're like, okay, we need to up the curfew, cannot be outside at night for any reason. Pretty nutty, one of those. Like, again, the authoritarian bent in Australia is very interesting to me for a lot of reasons, but like, it's like, yeah, of course this is the logical way to deal with a health crisis. And so they increased the restrictions, and still, despite that, you might notice that, the cases in Australia have been going up pretty steadily despite this. It is, they have locked down the population very heavily, and still cases are going up. And so Australia right now is in this really weird worst of both worlds situation where they are, they quarantine people for 2 weeks when they come into the country, so you're not allowed to leave Australia if you're an Australian to go on holiday, because then you have to come back and they don't want you to do that. In addition to all of that, now they also have lockdowns. They have the worst of all worlds, because it's also, as far as I can tell, one of the most authoritarian lockdowns in the world. Like, you cannot leave a certain area of your house. There are a lot, and everyone's going like, yeah, this is a really good thing. They're saying we won't end the lockdown until everyone gets vaccinated, but also they don't have the vaccines, and it's like, man, that is I cannot imagine the place to be. In fact, they only just yesterday revealed their plans to end the months-long. It's been going on since July. It is September, and what they've said is like, yeah, So maybe next month, maybe, for the last 2 months, this week by week extension of a lockdown we've been doing, what we're going to do is next month, if we can get 70% of adults vaccinated, which isn't your decision, because obviously we're the ones with the vaccines or not, then maybe everyone can go back to living a normal life, which means you can carpool again, you can travel around the state, not between different states, you can have 20-person outdoor gatherings, and 5 visitors allowed in your own home. It is very exciting. Time to be Australian, that next month you'll be able to do all these exciting things if you're vaccinated and if enough other people get vaccinated, because it's not solely a personal responsibility thing there. And so that's incredibly interesting that, like, man, that is, again, like, if you're in favor of the zero COVID approach, it's like, yeah, they're doing it right. They are stomping that boot so hard that they will kill COVID. Except actually, fascinatingly enough, obviously everyone knows, it's been known for a while that like COVID's gonna be an endemic thing, but it's like actually it's crazy to watch and see that this is a thing that is being increased. So for instance, in addition to having to again stomp harder on personal liberties that are used to spread viruses, look at all these virus spreaders at the beach. I don't see any humans. I just see COVID cases. But the fascinating thing about this, if you look into it, is that Australia is actually kind of doubling down on the previous strategy of like, yeah, we can avoid lockdowns if we just, it's the foreigners. It's where all the virus is coming from. And so now they've gone a step further and been like, actually, what if when Australians leave? So right now to enter Australia, you have to be an Australian citizen or resident or like attached to someone that way. A country cannot deny their own citizens coming into the country, although Australia has effectively worked out a sneaky way around that by making it law that airlines can only carry a certain number of passengers per week. So they've worked out a sneaky way to only let 350 What is it? Is it 350? Let me confirm real quick using my handy dandy PowerPoint from the Australian government. Right now, they say, okay, they've cut the inbound passengers by another 50% in the current cap. I think it's either 350 a week or 350 a day. So they cap the number of people who can come into the country, but they're going a whole nother level now, and they're like, okay, if you would like to enter Australia, even if you are an Australian citizen, which of course we, cannot deny you officially, unless you're from India, which is a weird another human rights violation, but we're not dealing with that in this video. But the crazy thing is that it's like, yeah, so if you would like to visit Australia, you cannot leave. Strict new border rules mean Australians who live outside, you are a resident of America who are just visiting your family, even when you go for the 2 weeks quarantine hotel, even when you go for all this craziness, it's like, well, if you'd like to leave, you need an exception. Otherwise, you're stuck in the country like everyone else, which is, again, the current status quo, because they assume that only people inside of Australia are only leaving to go on holidays, so you need very specific documentation to leave the country. You are trapped inside, party town, Australia, and obviously, like, being trapped inside your state or inside a lockdown area, so Sydney and then New South Wales, and then, being trapped inside this area makes some sense. If you live in Wagga Wagga, I can't believe I've never heard of Wagga Wagga before. They have a beach in Wagga Wagga. I need to see this. It's a sandy riverfront beach with a barbecue shelter. If you live in Wagga Wagga, you might be able to understand being trapped here. This is not what I pictured when I imagined a beach, but you know what? What's Wagga Wagga gonna do about it? But like, you can vaguely understand that, right? But like, no, even if you're in a COVID-safe area and you'd like to leave, I actually have an Australian friend, lives in Australia, would like to just leave the country for good. He doesn't want to be there anymore. He's got a girlfriend outside the country, can't leave. Sorry. And it's like, it's been almost 2 years. So like, I guess I have a personal bias because of that. Actually, I don't care about the friend. I get to watch him suffer, and that's enjoyable if I'm a sociopath, which who knows, I could be. And so interestingly enough, if you look at, I don't think I'm a sociopath, by the way. It'd be cool if you were though, right? You'd be able to, I feel like if you knew you were a sociopath, you could take advantage of it. Otherwise, you'd just be like, you'd just be killing puppies and stuff, and like people would look at you weird. No one wants that. But what people do want is apparently quarantine hotels for the next 5 years. This is the official Australian government's plan for a national COVID-19 response. And you know what? This video goes on enough tangents as it is. So can I just point out my favorite thing about Australia? This is the actual crest of the Commonwealth of Australia. It has a kangaroo on the left and an emu on the right. You might think I'm joking when I say that. You might think this is a fake document or you might think that, oh, this isn't the real. No, look it up. Look up the. It's on their money. I love Australia, and that's why I think like that's why I think it's so interesting that like the world opinion has kind of shifted against Australia's current plan of like, yeah, well, lockdowns as last resort, i.e., you know, endless lockdowns because there are COVID cases and no one has any COVID immunity because we haven't had it for months. And also people haven't been getting vaccinated because why would you get vaccinated against a disease that doesn't exist in your country? But like, it's like, okay, yeah. And then eventually their plan is like, okay, post-vaccination phase, ease restrictions on vaccinated residents, such as lockdowns and border controls, and then lockdown only in extreme circumstances. And then it's like, okay, once public COVID-19 is endemic, etc., it's like no lockdowns, but still, it's like, well, shouldn't we still have a ton of different things? Basically, the long story short here is Australia is a very messy situation right now, and I think that it's kind of like a dark thing to watch from afar. That like, I think again, like I think if like on COVID there are two stances, and I realized early into this that like, first of all, by the way, I'd like to quickly make a confession. I was wrong last year. I was looking at the numbers every day, and like COVID like had a really big death, like. I mean, not a really big death. It started to drop off a cliff in like late February 2020. I was like, it'll get fine. And then it went up real bad in the summer, and then it started going, like a little bit down. And I was like, it's probably heading down now. And then it got way worse in the winter, and I was like, okay, guess this is an every year thing. And it's possible that I'm wrong about this year. You can see that again right now, cases have peaked and are starting to go down again. The world is just going through continuous sine waves on COVID right now. But fortunately, we're getting slightly better at treating it. Fortunately, we're getting slightly better at testing for it, and I think that's useful. But I think there really are two camps on COVID. The one camp is like, look at this death toll. 4.6 million human beings who could have been around right now aren't around. And the reason they are dead is because all of these countries didn't do enough. You know, if China had done a better job at not letting it escape their borders, if once it had fled to Italy, the EU had done a better job at keeping it in their borders, if once it got to America, America didn't just go, meh, maybe more people would be alive, you would say. I'd argue though, like, can you blame like, you know, the deaths of a disease on people? And it's an interesting, like, and you know, I think Australia is the point that like proves this one, that Australia did everything right. They did a lot of ballsy things that at the time seemed insane, like again locking down a country for like in terms of like border security, and like every time they had a single case they would lock down, they'd squish, you know, again the personal freedoms or the health decisions of people, and it like seemed draconian at the time, but they had a really good grip on it, and it's like, yeah, Australia's proof of what to do right. But if even Australia, Fortress Australia with their stringent border policies, still ends up with a lockdown, and by the way, this thing here just says Sydney. Right now is the place that's at risk, but it's also Victoria and the Australian Capital Territory, which is about half of Australians now living under, you know, lockdown, and also because people are not used to this, and because again, like, they didn't need to get vaccinated before because they didn't believe that why would you need a vaccine against a disease you haven't actually seen and that isn't in your country? And so it's like, yeah, I see the struggle that happens there, like. The flip, in fact, you can see this across a lot of countries. Countries that like have relatively small COVID outbreaks have a much more vaccine-resistant population because a 1 in a million side effect is nothing if you're living in a country where there's whatever the death rate is. It's less than 1 in a million, most people agree. Whereas when you live in a country that doesn't have any people dying of COVID, it's like, why would you go through the effort? And I think that's the interesting like flip side of this is like when you live in a global world. Which, fun fact, let me blow your mind. This is what the world actually. Where's the globe feature? Okay, you know what? I'm gonna find it. Where's the globe at? I just want to make it a globe. You know what? Google Maps changed, and I'm very disappointed. You know what? I don't want to see the world as a globe anyway. It's flat. We all know it's flat. This video has gone full conspiracy circle. So on this globe that we live on. Even if you have the perfect management, some fluke case is going to get through, and it's going to be like that. And it's crazy to watch this from afar, and it's crazy to see the world go from, oh yeah, Australia's done it right, to like, so Australians can't visit Australia without being stuck in the country indefinitely, and that's considered okay, even after, by the way, you go through your 2-week quarantine hotel, which costs you thousands of Australian dollars, and even after you spend lots of extra money on a ticket, because airlines can only sell so many tickets, even after you get through all of that, it's like, well, you know, should have considered living in another country, having a different country's passport, huh? You idiots. It's fascinating to me. But you know what, this video is going to end on like a COVID note. Because again, I feel like the other side of this is like, yeah, if every country had just done that right, we'd be here. But I think this is why it's such a big debate. Like, should you deal with the world as it is now, or should you try to make this ideal world like from scratch? If every single person right now locks themselves at home for a month, literally no going outside, not for exercise, not for food, not for water, not for medical treatment. Let some number of people die in their homes. Go purge mode, but you're not allowed outside. I don't know how that works. And we just deal with the consequences. Yeah, we could probably kill COVID off. Assuming that doesn't happen worldwide, by the way, because if just one person in a village in, actually, let's go find funny Australian place names. You know, that's how you can lift a video up. Like, a person from Cloncurry. Is that Cloncurry, actually? If a person from the Cloncurry just decides that he wants a baked good that morning and he spreads COVID to... Oh, and boom, the entire thing is worthless, right? So, but if you did do that, you could rid COVID of the world. Otherwise, though... rid the world of COVID. Otherwise, though, it's like, well, it's going to always have a host. It's always going to be inside someone. And, yeah, you know, my phone's ringing. What do I value more? Finishing this video or answering a phone call? The phone call ended itself. Pick the decision for me. So, anyway, to end this video on a less of a down note, because again, which way round is the correct way? I'm getting recalled back, it seems. Which way round is the correct way? It's hard to be sure, in my opinion. And so, let's be more fun at the end of this video and say, you know what? Instead of that, how about we look? By the way, you know, this is a sad number of deaths, but like, look how many people die every single day to every other cause. Why don't we see all of these deaths as a tragedy? Death, 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 death. You know, I'm just saying. I guess more people are being born every second. Isn't that crazy though? Like an entire life, an entire human being is being extinguished more than every single second. It's kind of nutty. We're spending this much trying to keep them alive, but we're just not doing a good job. Anyway, so I'd like to round out this video with some exciting news for all of you, because you know what? They really want to call me, because you know, 3 calls in a row, it's gotta be important, right? Anyway, so I'd like to share with you something entirely unrelated, because Australia is fun and all, but again, whenever we talk about COVID in video, no one changes their mind, because it's one of those opinions, it's just entrenched in you. Should you have a perfect world you build from scratch, or should you deal with the world you have? Dealing with the world you have means accepting that people die, and no one wants to be... I don't want these deaths on my conscience. Why should we accept that a person dies now? You know, car crash, lung disease, kidney disease, old age, you know, it's like, why should we accept all those things? And it's like, well, I think the point Australia has proved with this COVID thing is that imagine a world where we invented the car today. All of the people who had died in a car crash between when the car was invented and now would be alive right now. Think about the hundreds of thousands of people who could contribute and make the world a better place because they didn't get knocked by a car viciously. I saw someone who'd been hit by a car when I was in San Jose de Cabo. Fun fact. I could show you the road where I saw the dead body if you want. But you know, I already committed to getting most of the way there. Do you wanna see it? Do you wanna see the? It was on this little highway. I remember. There was a lot of police around it, and then I saw the boot sticking out. It was covered with one of those little things, and I was like, people die apparently. Who would have figured? I wouldn't have figured. And so yeah, if you invented the car today, all the people who would have died, they don't die now. But then also, it's not like you go straight tomorrow to the number of car deaths we have today. I think more people will die because something about humans dying makes other humans want to solve that problem, fix the cause, whatever you want to call it. And so yeah, I think that's interesting. Maybe you think it's interesting too. But the last point I wanted to make in this video, because that's a downer, and on COVID everyone has one opinion or the other, and I totally respect that. Like how can you come to an opinion where it's like, yeah, people dying is normal and we should... Like, how many people died today? 9,655 people. Are we just going to accept that? No one wants to accept 10,000 deaths a day worldwide and growing. So, yeah, the last point I want to raise right here. Someone is really, really desperate to call me right now. The last point I wanted to raise today is I found this flat for sale on our London, and I just find this fascinating because this would have been the perfect flat for me to buy, right? So it's a flat on Rossbury Avenue in the city of London. Low council tax rates there. It's a pretty nice modern flat, you know, would have been cool for making videos in or whatever else. However, when you get to photo 14, it gets a bit weird. What's that little entrance there? And you're like, oh, yeah, that is weird. And it's like, huh, wait one sec. Let's look at the key points. So it's a leasehold flat. It's got 2 double bedrooms, a modern kitchen, integrated appliances, a 3-piece bedroom suite, underground bunker. Wait, underground bunker? Okay, this is a really important phone call. You know what? The second channel, don't care. Don't support me on Patreon. I don't deserve it after this. Goodbye. Okay, so I am solely back just to complain about that phone call. I mean, they called 6 times in the space of a minute, right? So it's got to be very important. It's got to be life-endingly important if they're like, I'm going to keep trying until I reach them. And then it was a flooring delivery guy who was very upset. He's like, yeah, you arranged a delivery today, didn't you? Maybe important to answer your phones for that reason. And I was like, oh God, he's outside. Like, you know, my bad on this one. I should be dealing with that. And he's like, nah, I'll be there in 25 minutes. It's like, you were mad and you needed to call me repeatedly, despite being, the messages being thing. And it's like, because you are 20, whatever, you know, it's dumb. Living in the UK is dumb. This is why you should, like, why does anyone have their phone not on, like, silent? Even having your phone on vibrate is just an opportunity for people to annoy you all day. Do you need their annoyances? Not in your bunker, you don't, because this 2-bed flat comes with a state-of-the-art bunker. I have no idea why or how this ever gets put into place, but there is genuinely a bunker that has this long kind of back tunnel and then this main tunnel that's like this. In fact, if you look at the Art Deco building, which is rare to the market, I'll admit they're correct when they say it's rare to the market. This is not estate agent speak. But if we look at the floor plan for this, you can see the bunker actually has 1,600 square feet, 149 square meters, compared to the ground floor having 50 square meters. This is 3 times as big a space as this is. And so you've got to admit, most people would say, yeah, a bunker's dumb. But given if you look right here, it is, apparently, if you look at the bunker, it's like, yep, entrance, reception, bedroom 1, bedroom 2, bathroom, garden, and the bunker has lights throughout with separate switches for different sections, fully private and sole use throughout. And it's like, man, most people would find this to be insane. Wouldn't that be a perfect place to make videos and streams from? In fact, if I reveal where I am behind this green screen, you'll see that I'm not in a bunker, sadly. I could be. Wouldn't it be so much more interesting if you looked at the back and there was a bunk? Wait, I can make this happen. I know what I'm doing on the internet. Wouldn't it be so much better if you looked at me and I was like, yeah, wait. Yeah, this is. You like the new setup? I'm just saying, I should totally do that, right? There is no doubt that is what I should do from here on. Anyway, so oh, this is weird. This is the side I do my streams on. This isn't the side I do geography videos on. What if I go in the middle? Yeah, you know, I'm middle cat now. So the interesting thing if you look at this is like, okay, it's a bunker, it's 800 grand. This genuinely costs more than a house I bought, but it's in a nice area of London. I genuinely would love this place. I think I could never bring myself psychologically to spend over $1 million on a bunker in central London. But you've got to admit, like, you know, the biggest downside of leaseholds is in 982 years, this property stops being yours, and, you know, people hate that if you live outside of the UK. And even inside the UK, it's like, well, that's not great. I mean, when the nuclear apocalypse hits, 1, I'll still be able to upload my videos, but 2, oh yeah, good luck enforcing your leasehold on me when the concept of law doesn't exist. You know, fun. Anyway, long story short, it's very fun in my opinion. I want this flat. But the other thing about this video that's interesting, because I kind of hinted at it before, that like Australia has some crazy border restrictions. Am I getting phone called again? Okay, some insane border restrictions. And it's interesting enough, not just border restrictions externally, but also internally. Honestly, not many people cross internal border states inside of Australia, and so that's part of why this is true. But for instance, if you want to go to Western Australia, which is a whole third of the island of Australia. Sorry, continent of Australia. I'm a nerd, and I think that continents... I go with the definition of continents that were taught to me in school. Even though, like, why is this a continent all of a sudden? I think we'd see it as more of a continent if, like, Western Australia was like a separate country. But whatever, we see it as a continent. I'm gonna live with that. So the western third of this entire place has some of the strictest border restrictions across the rest of Australia. So if you want to go from South Australia to Western Australia, no, you don't. That is not a thing you do. You want to go from South Australia to New South Wales by going via Broken Hill. I want to see the very Broken Hill itself. No, you cannot do that. Internal, like, border restrictions are incredibly heavy inside of Australia, and it's something most countries haven't done or have chosen not to do. For instance, the US, officially speaking, I know this is someone who traveled during crazy times. When I entered Nevada from California, when I entered Nevada for the first time, it was when I entered California for the first time on a connecting flight, I got a text from the CDC being like, you must quarantine for 2 weeks if you come from another state. Again, it's like quarantine for 2 weeks. No state actually even tried to enforce this besides New York, which didn't do a very good job in itself. But like the idea was that some states made you quarantine, but actually didn't, and most states were just like, whatever, we can't stop people from North Dakota getting into Montana or vice versa. So whatever, it's all one country, right? Even when you look at like Canada, which like officially did have a lot of laws between provinces, but like in actuality, it's like, again, it's less strictly enforced. And the UK, there are 4 subdivisions of the UK. There we go. That's not offensive, right? 4 countries, if you use a different definition of country to the one the rest of the world uses. You know what? I would love to make a video just about, is the UK 4 countries or 1? Just to offend the internet, like I love to do. But anyway, so if we right here, I talk about the English-Welsh border, you might have noticed there's a very video on this channel. I can find the border crossing. Somewhere over here, I crossed over. I think it would be right here. Is there a little photosphere? There is. I was here on a scooter recently. I was on the 3rd channel, actually, and you might have noticed I was not arrested, despite officially this sign being the end point. I even saw a guy who was like, well, this is as far as I can go. And then while he was doing that, people were just like biking past and stuff. It was very fun in my opinion. But my point here was just meant to be that most countries don't control their internal states. But the interesting thing about Australia is all of this, like, with the very weird exception of, I think it's New South Wales and Victoria, there are some border towns. I think actually Queensland and New South Wales too. Like, there are actually towns along the border, which is very, very... Half of the Gold Coast airport is in New South Wales. That is very interesting. But with very few exceptions like this, where like you go down the street and you cross it, Australia's states are very, very far apart. And that is why something you don't really fully realize is that Australia has not really as much of a federal government as other countries. And so a big part of their struggle, a big part of the reason they are so authoritarian about everything, is it's like a way of asserting dominance on those individual states, right? I mean, if you let the states do whatever they want, they might not do the things that you want them to do. And, you know, something, government power consolidating. Anyway, thank you for watching this video. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, don't forget to smash, I don't know, the button that corresponds to good things happening for you and your family. And make sure you have a good day, because I've got some flooring to pick up in 20 minutes. And it's urgent. It's urgent that I know he's 20 minutes away. And I hope that you know I'm 20 minutes away from advertising my Patreon to you. I'm just kidding. If you want to give me money for these videos, you can. It won't improve the quality in the slightest. This is my fun little hobby. I have all this stuff lying around anyway. It's me over a map. There is no quality to any of this. And so if you give me any money, it's solely going to recreational expenses. And you can go to patreon.com/toycat to do precisely that. $114 per month. It's pretty good. I like seeing the number go up. So if you want me to feel the tiniest bit of dopamine, hit that what is the button called? The Patreon button. Go hit the Patreon button. But if you don't, go visit Australia. Haha, you can't. Goodbye.